Good evening. Welcome to this public meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Palo Alto Unified School District. Today is October 11th, 2022. The board met in closed session and took no reportable thinner dais here tonight. Mr. Dauber, as you can see from your agenda, is out of the country, and Mr. Drop could not be with us this evening. So there are three of us in person, and we will bring him in via Zoom. Otherwise, it'll be the three of us. Can we start by getting an approval on the agenda order?
Is there a second?
Second.
Student preferential vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Colleagues, all those in favor?
Aye.
Great. Okay.
Is that American? I have to be in our game tonight.
I know.
Seriously, you guys are moving and seconding all things. Okay, approval of the agenda order. So we're going to start with the student board member reports. Mr. Pan, you want to start us? Okay.
All right. Hi, everyone. In the past few weeks, Gun has held many school events, starting with a fall club fair where hundreds of Gun students gathered in the senior quad to explore different clubs ranging from debate, biotech, film, or even arm wrestling club. Yes, we have an arm wrestling club at Gun. The week after the club fair, Gun hosted its Men's Month. We provided counseling services, raised awareness for mental health issues, and gave. The next day, we hosted a staff appreciation lunch in the Acorn Lounge near our library. And at the end of the week, we had our Gun Sidelance, which was a performance set up for students that formed bands and performed at the senior quad. The music was actually really good, and we had a lot of people there to watch the performances. Last week, we had our Oktoberfest on Wednesday, which was an event that celebrated German culture with different games from Germany or party games in general, like beanbags, racing with an egg on a spoon, and more. Students won a ticket from every game and could get the feast with 5 tickets that included mashed potatoes, sausages, and pretzels. We also had our Kaleidoscope concert last Friday where band and orchestra performed at Gun Spangenberg Theater. Parents, teachers, and students were all welcome to join. All right, now we have the most exciting part, which is homecoming, which is coming next week. It'll be next week, and honestly, even though I'm very excited for it, I'm also very sad because it's my last year. Ticket sales for Night Rally, which is an event on Thursday night where each class performs their dance, and the homecoming dance have started. We have also nominated our 10 deserving seniors for the homecoming court last week. Each class has started finalizing their floats and air bands, which will have a run through tomorrow afternoon. Speaking of Wednesday afternoon, even though this week, the week before homecoming, should be pretty fun, our juniors unfortunately have to take the PSAT test tomorrow, while every other class will be participating in specific activities in their self-classes like career exploration, movies, and also other speakers. We also had pretty amazing sports results. Girls and boys water polo beat many schools, including Pali, for a fun rivalry in their games, and our girls volleyball team beat Pali in just 3 sets in a best out of 5, which is very cool because Pali is often regarded as one of the best in the league. Anyways, that's it for me.
Thank you, Ms. Sia.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Hello. I just want to introduce myself one more time. My name is Johanna Sia. Sia like see you later. And I am the Pali board rep. A lot has happened since the last board meeting, so I'll just jump right in. To start off, while Gun is having their homecoming week next week, we had our Spirit Week at the end of September. We kicked off Monday of Spirit Week, where each grade had their own unique theme. Students came dressed according to the themes: Lorax for freshmen, Stranger Things for K for seniors. ASB put on best dressed fashion show each day to complete with a runway and music during brunch for the most decked out students from each grade to present their outfits and win spirit points. During lunch, we had music, volleyball, and spike ball on the quad, as well as dance practices for class spirit dances. We had our first indoor rally since 2019 in the big gym, where students brought all the hype. ASB class officers led their class cheers, and the stands were vibrant with the class colors of orange, red, yellow, and green. We had our 3 spirit games of Guess the Lyric, Hungry Hungry Hippos, and Balloon Pop. We had our outdoor rally on Thursday at the football field. Students gathered to see the teacher spirit dance, the Pally cheer and dance teams perform, as well as compete in class cheers. On Thursday night, we wrapped up our week with float building. While we were all stressing to finish our floats in time, I can definitely feel the positive and encouraging energy. Students were collaborating and problem solving and cheering each other on, and even just singing along to the YMCA as we. I wish I could show you all photos because the floats were just really that impressive. I want to give a big props to the hardworking students behind float designs, the generous parents for supporting us, and of course, all the students who came, rolled up their sleeves, and helped out. We ended Spirit Week with our after-school Friday rally where we presented our class dances and floats. In short, everybody absolutely killed it. It was an incredibly memorable rally with cheer, encouragement, and excitement. And as a senior, I was happy to have such a successful last dance with our class. The seniors did. The Friday homecoming football game was also a great display of Pally spirit. With neon clothing and glow sticks, Pally students demonstrated positive sportsmanship through the cheers and crowd activities. Even though we lost the game, I still had a great time appreciating the excellence of Pally pep band, cheer, dance, and of course, the senior spirit dance performance at halftime. Finally, we had our homecoming. The dance was held indoors for the first time since 2019, and ASB decked out the small gym with colorful streamers, balloons, and disco balls for our disco theme. We were surprised to gain a very large turnout of around 1,200 students. We had music, food, and a specialty treat of fresh-made mini donuts. I want to give a big thank you again to all the teachers, admin, staff for all the Spirit Week support, wonderful volunteer parents who provided guidance and delicious food for float building, and of course, the students in ASB for such an amazing Spirit Week. From leading dance practices almost every single lunch for a month, to designing floats, to spending the morning and night after Spirit Week preparing and tearing down for the dance, ASB has put in tireless hours to put on a great Spirit Week despite our challenges. I want to specifically shout out Evie and Raz, who are our Spirit Commissioners, as well as Inez and Kennedy, who are our social commissioners who planned the dance, and all of the class officers for being so dedicated and hardworking. Besides Spirit Week, of course, Pally has been up to a lot of other activities as well. In our arts department, we had our Fireway Arts glass sale in September. Girls are selling now as actors are getting off book. As for academics, Pally has had numerous college visits on site, as well as a college fair yesterday in the Peary Center. And as Daniel said, the PSAT is for juniors for tomorrow as well. We also had school off yesterday. Whew. Pally has been doing amazing in a multitude of fields. Pally Robotics went to the Cal Games and made it to finals. Pally's Speech and Debate brought home victories from the Milpitas, Duke, and Garcia tournaments. Verde released their first issue with CMAG and Viking Publication Productions following the next week. Varsity girls cross country took the win at the Clovis meet, and fall sports are transitioning to as tennis is closing and cheer is moving into their competition season. For future events, Latinx Festival will be held this Friday, senior portraits are due this Friday, and Wellness will be holding a pumpkin painting event during Prime tomorrow. I know this is getting long, but as for board news, the PAUSD Board Candidate Forum with a secondary focus occurred last Thursday and was excellently moderated by students Julian from Pally and Lily from Gunn, both being from the speech and debate teams. It was great to hear from all the board candidates and just have a clear understanding of their perspectives. As a board rep, I was very happy to know which candidates will stand for students and truly advocate for inclusion, safety, and support. I just wanted to give a message to the public to remember that the school district is here to serve and benefit students and the Palo Alto community. In my opinion, and I think should be everyone's, school ought to be a place where students feel loved and supported and gain an education that cultivates empathy, and make it better. While I cannot yet vote, I hope this notion is clear to all those who will be voting this election. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Austin.
Okay, so during my meetings with small groups of principals, which I do routinely, a couple things have come up. First, they asked me, even today, to express their appreciation of our maintenance and operation teams for their hard work and responsiveness, and they gave concrete details about how quick our teams are to come out and problem solve with them, and they just really wanted me to say thanks on their behalf. Next, they wanted me to thank our employees for their engagement in our recent Professional Development Day. Both certificated and classified team members participated in a variety of meaningful trainings that add value for our students, and the engagement level was very high and again, appreciated. I'd like to thank everyone at PALI for taking things seriously and responding appropriately. It wasn't long ago we had to talk through some things that fell a little short. It's a good reminder, however, that we were all young once, and it is our role as the adults and the leaders and our student leaders to create learning opportunities even when it requires consequences. And students want to know what the boundaries are and will almost always meet them. They'll almost always make us proud. And hopefully this is a blip. And if it was important enough to say on the front end that we were disappointed, it's important enough to say on the back end, we really appreciate school has handled the situation and the students have responded. Our ad hoc committee meetings have been progressing very nicely. And I think the attention to detail on the front end, the clear charges, the makeup of the committees, and the understanding of their roles and expectations has really been pretty awesome. Meetings from our minutes will appear on our website. In fact, they're already there. And we will also post on our agendas as information items, including tonight. All of our school board candidates for putting themselves out there. And the scrutiny that candidates go through and the number of events and forums in Palo Alto is unlike anything I've seen. And they're in, and it's a grind. And no matter how it turns out, I appreciate all of them for their willingness to put their hand up and to take the scrutiny and to express.
Great, thank you. Next is open forum. As a reminder, at the beginning of the school year, we went back to accepting Zoom comments. And it has a link to where you can fill out the form. If you'd like to speak to a particular item, we ask that you do it before the end of the first speaker speaking. We will take speakers in order, alternating between in-person and Zoom, starting with in-person, and we will take students first. For open forum, there are no students, so we will start first with Stephen Davis. You have 3 minutes. Come on up.
Good evening. Is that on?
Can't really hear you.
Huh? Oh,
Just
sorry. Get closer. First of all, actually, to echo the superintendent, as a neighbor of Greer Park, we had no eggs this year. It was wonderfully boring. Thank you. And actually, to follow up also on the other comment from the superintendent, I've known personally some school board members in my previous school district and how much the ones who, once you get elected, the campaign is nothing compared to the amount of work you all do on the job. And so I'd like actually to expand that appreciation for the amount of effort being on a school board is truly sub-minimum wage work. Next, I would like to invite you to the Special Education and Disability Candidates Forum next Wednesday at the Unitarian Church. That's Wednesday the 19th at 6:30 p.m. You'll get to meet at least one of your new colleagues or hear from them. The information on that is available at PASEP.org. Last board meeting, I presented from some special education gap data, and I posted that actually at the same website with the gaps between Palo Alto's special education and gen ed students, as well as some other resources. And again, that's PASEP.org. Finally, the main thing I'd like to talk about today is why it is really important that we have a standing district advisory committee on special education and disability issues. As you all know, particularly from some of the closed door meeting stuff, is a very complicated issue and you all spend a lot of time on it. It is complicated in every aspect of it. The budget is complicated. You have both the special education budget and then the fact that these students also are in the general education budget. I don't know that anyone ever straightens it out. You do, I know, but in my last district, we found that we were spending like, I think, $7 million a year on buses, and the educational value of bus transportation was kind of a, raise some. Also, performance data, you can do much deeper dives. Again, in my last school district, I convinced once the special ed director to break down the performance differences between the students at different levels of inclusion and to see what the results looked like English learners, and that kind of analysis is more than we often get to do here. And also, having a district advisory committee would allow appropriate people to have access to more sensitive data when you get groups
That's
too
time,
small.
Mr. Davis.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please feel free to email board@pausd.org for any other info. Next person on Zoom is Yumit Yapanel. Are you there?
Can you hear me?
If you could speak up a little bit more.
Okay, sure. Dear fellow Alto Unified board members, staff, and families, the issue I'll be presenting today relates to my minor child's private information, and the board will have copies of the relevant documents. And these documents are not to be copied, retained, or shared pursuant to state and federal privacy law, which will be provided to the board members in the packet I will email shortly. I do not give permission for the school district board members or anyone else to disclose my child's confidential information to anyone without my consent. I would like to make it clear the tensions or negativity at all. As the parents, we have gone through unrepairable harm and stress over the past 2 months and do not want this issue to linger any further, negatively affecting our family's mental well-being. This should be considered as a sincere attempt to object resolve, but clearly is an illegal, unlawful position taken by the district, despite numerous state and federal laws proving otherwise. I am a parent of a student attending Palo Verde Elementary School, and I am here today to ensure that my child's enrollment continues. The district has set an arbitrary deadline of September 18 without any legal authority to exclude my child from school. And yet on September 20th, my child was excluded from school without being provided a due process or a fair hearing. Even though she has a very high likelihood to be injured by the vaccinations, we were coerced into resuming her immunizations so that she can return to school 10 days later, as the district has not provided an alternative route or a fair hearing to resolve the issue. Even our requests for my child to stay in school as our council's deliberate on the situation was not approved. Unfortunately, the district has attempted to take away my child's fundamental right to education, which exceeds its legal authority. She was discriminated against her medical condition, which is also strictly prohibited by both state and federal laws. I'm asking for your help tonight as the overseeing neutral body of the district to reverse the unlawful decision that was made and enforced by Palo Alto Unified staff members and rescind the illegal revocation notification that was sent to me on August 18. I would like the board to provide a written decision to my request as soon as possible, as the time is of the essence. Here is a short timeline of the incidents leading to my appearance today to request help from the board. On August 19, I received an email notification from the district by a school district employee stating
Okay,
that my
thank you.
child's
Time is up. If you have anything else, you can email it directly to the board at board@pausd.org. Next up in person is Kimberly Engley.
Before we do that, can I just confirm with Dr. Austin? Dr. Austin, are you familiar with the situation? Is there?
We are.
Okay, so can you communicate with the board at some point to give us an update on
Yes, I need to think about how to do that, but yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Ms. Ang Lee. Don't need that anymore. Hi, Kimberly Ang Lee on behalf of the Palo Alto CAC for Special Education. I come today to share that October is Learning Disabilities, Dyslexia, and ADHD Awareness Month. Learning disabilities, LDs, occur in as many as 1 in 5 people. That's adults and children. Neurobiological differences affect how they receive and process information. As a result, they have differing abilities and ways of thinking that are not accurately measured by traditional benchmarks, and they learn and work best using non-traditional approaches. Learning disabilities and differences are not reflective of intelligence and occur on a continuum of severity affecting individuals from all cultures, languages, ethnicities, and socioeconomic backgrounds. Dyslexics have strengths in creativity, problem-solving, and communication skills, and challenges with spelling, reading, and memorizing facts. Those with ADHD benefit from hyperfocus, resilience, creativity, conversational skills, spontaneity, and abundant energy. Impulsiveness, concentration, and task completion. The right tools and strategies will empower and transform students with LDs. Our society needs neurodiverse thinkers, learners, and workers. Individuals identified with specific learning disabilities have a disorder in the basic psychological processes for understanding or using language, which may manifest in an imperfect ability to listen, think, speak, read, write, spell, or perform mathematical calculations. These school-age children may be provided with services through IDEA, free of charge through the public school system. The reauthorization of IDEA in December 2004 added procedures for identifying children with specific learning differences. States must go beyond the use of a severe discrepancy between intellectual ability and achievement for identification, AKA not a model of waiting to fail. And they must permit the use of a process based on a child's response to scientific, research-based intervention. Concurrently, Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act guarantees equal access for all persons with handicapping conditions in schools and in all settings. 504 plans are for students with dyslexia who only need accommodations or who have successfully completed remediation plans and are able to decode and encode reasonably well with or without assistive technologies. CAC respectfully advises consideration beyond the discrepancy model. In fact, systems of support, including universal screening, identification, and evidence-based interventions, both academic and emotional, address the needs of such students. Proper identification assures diverse learners will receive needed supports and services to survive in PAUSD and beyond. Thank you. Thank you. Did you time that? Next on Zoom, we have Edith Cohen. Ms. Cohen, are you there?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. I would like to talk about the early literacy. Thank you all. Literacy and mathing are critical for students' future, as students that lose ground during this time rarely catch up later. Unfortunately, in our district, 75% of students meet standards and 90% nearly meet the grade level standards. The post-promise document set progress goals focused on improving literacy for this small group of students that struggle. The goals look at the third grade cohorts of different years and consider the difference of proportions of students that meet or nearly meet the standards. The target improvements are 3% the first year and 4% and 5% the following years, using the smarter balanced assessment. The first report comparing the 2019 and 2020 cohorts was released recently and seemed to show significant improvements. We examined the goals and data and shared our analysis with Dawn and the board, and we're really grateful that Dawn and 2 board members actually are following up. The good news is that the bulk of our students clearly didn't lose ground during the pandemic. However, it is not possible to conclude that there was any improvement in struggling students. We determined that the goals lack statistical significance due to small cohort sizes. Essentially, they are random coin tosses. We're walking in the dark. And the results are misleading also due to a sharp decline in the number of students with disabilities that are serviced in-house. To improve, my big ask is to formulate new goals, not to continue with the current goals for another 2 years that are statistically significant. There are ways to do it. We can use state-of-the-art assessment tools such as NWEA map. Progress goals need to be, for the statistical significance, they need to be longitudinal rather than cross-sectional, considering growth per student. Other benefits of these new tools is that we can measure starting kindergarten, not lose these critical very early years, have a good insight into what's happening there. Spring of third grade as the first measurement is too late. And of course, all these results should be shared with parents, and teachers can use them to guide targeted intervention and catch issues early on. So please consider revisiting these goals. And I really appreciate the board members and Don listening. This is just statistics, and we need measurement, good goals to make progress. Thank you all. Yes.
Thank you. Next in person, Elaine Heel.
Hi, I'm Elaine Heel, speaking for Palo CAC for Special Education. October is Dyslexia and LD Awareness Month, as Kimberly mentioned. So we want to use this time to bring awareness to dyslexia and to take a few minutes to remember the dyslexia resolution that the board adopted in January 2018. The resolution acknowledged that, quote, it is estimated that up to 20% of the overall population displays some signs and/or symptoms of dyslexia, impacting up to 1 million children in California, close quote. The PAUSD dyslexia resolution also acknowledged, quote, systems of support, including universal screening, identification, and evidence-based interventions, address the needs of individual students within an integrated tiered system, close quote. And finally, the dyslexia resolution also, quote, hereby proclaims a commitment to supporting administrators, teachers, and other school personnel in identifying and addressing the needs of students with dyslexia, providing professional learning for educators, and providing education and supports to students and families to promote self-awareness, self-empowerment, and overall success in school and life, close quote. It has been nearly 5 years since the board adopted the dyslexia resolution, and in that time, PAUSD has implemented a dyslexia screener and formally provided regular updates to the board on the screening process and on the dyslexia work in the district. However, this year I did not see any mention of an update to the board in the agenda items related to dyslexia or to screening. Is PAUSD still screening for dyslexia? Are there planned updates to the board and/or to the public on the status of this dyslexia work in the district? Since it's Dyslexia Awareness Month, CAC would like to bring dyslexia to top of mind and request continued updates regarding the district's important work with respect to dyslexia. Thank you.
Thank you. I put that on some agenda setting list I have here. On Zoom, we have Carrie Law, and that is, I believe, the last open forum comment we have. Ms. Law, are you there?
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
You're very quiet. Can you speak up?
Yes, can you hear me? Is it better?
Better, yes, thank you.
Okay, so I would like to see timely communication in the formation of combo classes. My daughter is a first grade student at Addison Elementary, and she is in a K1 combo class this year. We were shocked to find out that she's placed in a combo class just the day before the first day of school. And we have not heard from the school at the end of the last school year or over summer, but we stayed in town all summer. The news broke my heart. In her current class, A single teacher teaches both kindergarten and first grade separately for reading, phonics, math, social studies, and science, and they will have music, PE, and writing together. My daughter said that she is repeating what she learned last year in music and PE and tried to comfort me, saying that sometimes learning the same thing isn't a bad thing. There is definitely room for improvement in terms of planning and communication from the school management. I wish the school had informed all first grade families when the school management is aware of the low enrollment situation so that we can have some time to plan should we decide to switch to a private school or move out of Palo Alto. 9 out of 10 first grade students in the combo class are returning students at Addison. As a sideline, my daughter told me that there are new students in the 2 regular first grade classes. I spoke with the current principal, Mr. Downing, on the back to school night. He made it clear that we cannot transfer to the 2 regular first grade classes this year, even if there are openings. He promised to send us a survey in spring as to whether we want to continue with the combo class. Only then we can opt out. I hope this time round, timely communication and planning would reduce the disappointment to a minimum. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I believe that is the last questions. So now we are moving on to the consent calendar. These items are considered routine and will be approved how do I close this? I can't even tell you. Gosh, okay, sorry. The items are considered routine and will be approved in one action without discussion. If a board member requests an item be removed from the calendar or a citizen wishes to speak to an item, it will be considered under action items. Do I have a motion?
I move the consent calendar as presented.
I second.
You know, as a trio. Okay, student board preferential vote.
Aye.
Aye.
And colleagues, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Wonderful. Okay, moving on to action items. 5A, Dr. Austin.
We'll bring up Mr. Holm to walk us through this item.
Good evening, Board. This first item here is authorization to award a contract for the Administration Food Service Project at Gunn High School. This is what we've called colloquially as ABK buildings. The award of the contract will go to Salsa Corporation, and it also will require an increase to the project budget of $7,653,000. We had good bid coverage. We had 4 bidders. There was a bid protest. We had to resolve that. And Salsa was the lowest responsible bidder with a construction bid amount of $26 million, 26.8. And with the added additional costs and soft costs brings the total project budget to 38.
Okay. Colleagues, any questions?
I do have a question. So, so the increase, the budget increase of $7.7 million, is that reflective of change in scope, or is it market conditions versus the time it was budgeted?
It is about 3/4 market conditions and 1/4 change in scope as required by the Division of State Architect for the structural rehabilitation process they made us go through. So they added a significant amount of structural upgrades as a requirement of the project.
And so it's about 5 million market conditions on a project that before was a total of about 30 million?
Let's see. Yes, original project budget was 30 million. And
So you said about 3/4 of 7.7 million, maybe a little more than 5 million.
we have a combination of both soft costs and hard construction costs added to the total project cost.
So it's about 20%.
Yes.
Before this increase before the scope change, which is, I mean, just, you know, kind of needed, I just wanted to mark it because we're gonna see a series of projects, and I assume they're all gonna situation, right?
We have seen that, the Pally Tower was over by, we will see this. Part of this is acute market conditions we're seeing right now, as far as the 75% of the overage. But the other component of it is that the DSA changes and the process they made us go through added 8 months to a year to the process. So you have escalation just as a factor of the process that DSA made us go through. We also have this on the JLS project that we'll be bidding in the coming months. So we'll see some sort of similar results from that.
Thank you. And I just wanted to make sure, confirm, I guess, that this project, like the other projects we're going to see this evening and all the projects that we see related to construction, has been vetted and forwarded by the Board Property Committee already, is that right?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, and I assume they spend quite a bit more time than we spend at this meeting reviewing the details of the project.
Yes.
Okay, good, thank you. That was my question.
Great. I'm guessing that we don't have questions because we saw this at property. Student board reps, do you have any questions?
So I move that we approve it as presented.
Second. Great. Student board member preferential vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Colleagues, all those in favor?
Aye.
Great. Okay. I think for B, declaration of need.
This is Mr. Bahadur Singh's.
Talk very loudly.
No, find a mic, because they can't hear you,
On
the
TV.
viewers can't hear you without a mic.
All right, how's that?
That's much better.
Great. Okay, so the declaration of need is a requirement from the California Commission on Teacher Credentialing. And basically what that is they require districts to report on any teachers that need to be credentialed for any sections or outside of their normally credentialed area, teaching areas. So we're bringing to last May. So one of the processes that the CTC requires that is different from past years is that you have to list exactly what the actual teaching areas are, credential areas, subject areas, requesting a GLAP credential, general ed, limited assignment permit for. So we have four. We have for English, for geosciences, home economics, and math. The county often recommends that you just put a larger number and, even that maybe than what you anticipate. Pretty much our practice has been to try and provide accurate information on what our needs are. So this is why we are bringing this back to you a second time to update the areas of need that we have. So it's pretty much of a standard practice that all districts are required.
Colleagues?
So I move that we approve the declaration of need as presented.
Second. See a pattern here. Case here, case here, case here, case.
Aye.
Aye.
Colleagues, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to discussion items. 6A is the Every Student Reads Initiative, and I just want to note that we have one comment from the public that we will hear after we hear the presentation.
We are starting directly with Ms. Reynolds.
Good evening, board members. In September, Educational Services presented the 2022 results of the Every Student Reads Initiative for Progress Indicators 1 and 2, and promised to bring baseline results and the updated Progress Indicator 3 goal for your discussion. And we'll advance the slide as soon as it advances. How about now? There we go. As you may recall, Progress Indicator 3 aimed to increase the identified Every Student Reads Initiative groups reading on or above grade level by 5% as measured by the Benchmark Assessment System, the BAS. The updated Progress Indicator 3 continues with the goal of a 5% increase for the next 2 years using the iReady diagnostic reading assessment. Here are the kindergarten through 5th grade beginning of year iReady diagnostic reading results for the identified Every Student Reads Initiative groups. Here's the baseline percentage of students reading at or above grade level for the Every Student Reads Initiative groups. At the end of year goal of a 5% increase for each group. Thank you. Ms. Brown.
Thank you, Ms. Wren. Thank you, Ms. Wren. Thank you, Ms. Wren. Thank you, Ms. Wren. We ask that you discuss this goal, and if you have any changes for us, and we will bring this back for approval next month.
Okay, thank you. Colleagues, questions, comments? Yes.
Thank you for this brief presentation. I ready slide? That'd be great. Thank you very much. I just want to make sure that I know how to interpret this slide and that our audience does as well. So this slide is a beginning of year assessment. Is this assessing children against where they should be at the beginning of the year for the grade level, or something? How does one read this slide? What do the statements mean?
Yes, this is beginning of year for the benchmark, and then mid-year we'll have a mid-year benchmark and end-of-year benchmark, and it is Common Core standards aligned.
Let's take the one in the middle, Hispanic and Latino. So the yellow, the orange, and the red, just roughly looking at it, it's 17 plus 5 is 22, plus 50 is 72-ish%. So that says that 72% of Hispanic and Latino students are below grade level in covering all of grades K through 5.
K through 5 at the beginning of year.
Now, so that's the question, are they below, if I'm in first grade, am I below where I should be at the end of the year, which would be expected, or below where I should be at the beginning of the year?
At the beginning of year.
So, okay, so that's very informative. So that says, and let's go to the next one, which is Hispanic socioeconomically disadvantaged students. We're just doing the math on the fly. We've got 47 plus 27, that's 60, 74, plus another 8, that's 82. So 82% of Hispanic socioeconomic are one grade below grade level or more at the beginning of year.
Correct.
So first, I really like this chart. But the idea that we're putting this chart up at all, to me, is very powerful. Because this really focuses and puts on one page in a way that you really can't be confused or turn away, where we're seeing that, for the groups of students who arguably depend on school the most for their opportunities to learn, that we have not accomplished our mission with these students, since a majority of every one of the categories of this on this page, and up to over 80% for Hispanic socioeconomically disadvantaged, which is I believe the largest. Socioeconomically disadvantaged in general is larger. So students with disabilities, but certainly one of the largest groups of students that we need to serve. We're just way behind. So, and I do see, iReady's, I believe, the most popular assessment system used in California, and I've seen these iReady charts just like this for other districts. This comes off the iReady portal, right? And I'll tell you, most districts which don't have the advantages that we have and don't have the funding that we have, their charts for this group look just like this. They look just like this. So in a sense, that's disappointing, because we think of ourselves as, I think it's in California. But as Ms. Conaway once put it, we can't call ourselves a great school district unless we get great results for our most challenged and least resourced students. And this chart, not there yet. So anyway, but I really like this chart because this is a good way for us to tell, this chart and the chart that accompanies it, the next chart, really lets us know, are we doing our job? And are we improving at doing our job over time? So I really appreciate this. This is, I think, exactly the kind of numbers that I like to see and help me understand whether, we up here are doing our job and whether we're supporting you and doing yours. And I look forward to more updates of the same data in the future. Thank you. Sorry, that was a long speech by me without much of a question. Did you want to add it? Did you want to respond to that? Did you want to say anything, Ms. Reynolds?
No?
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Ledermack, anything?
No, the only thing I want to say is I'm interested, we have three, as we all know, we have three progress indicators. And the first two for last year, which we celebrated last meeting, are focused on third grade. And this is the one that's focused on K through 5. So I'm really interested moving forward to see if we, when we're looking at the larger group, as we did when we focused on the 1 grade.
Student board reps, any comments? Okay. So I've got a few. Thank you for this. I also like the visual of this. I mean, it's heartbreaking to see, but it's good to see what's out there. A few thoughts and a few questions. We did decide that we were going to measure this with aggregate data, and it does seem like we right now are probably missing a lot, just looking at the aggregate data, K-5. But I believe that every teacher sees every student, where every student is on every measure that iReady looks at, right? And so I do think it would be helpful along, also looking at sort of an all students at the bottom to see K-5 district-wide where we are and how that differs. I mean, it's clear we have work to do. We often talk about students that have fewer advantages, and we see low numbers there, but we also see low numbers for students who don't necessarily have socioeconomic disadvantages that aren't doing really much better. In fact, Hispanic or Latino students overall have fewer students at grade level than our socioeconomically disadvantaged groups as a whole. So I do think it would be interesting to just add a sort of all students at the bottom as a comparison. Can you understand the change we made here? We said at the beginning of last year we were going to spend years looking at comparing data, and now we've changed our measure. Can you just say real quickly the difference between BAS and iReady?
So the benchmark assessment system is a teacher reading fluency and reading comprehension, and gives us information about student reading behaviors and reading processes. iReady is an online assessment that assesses 6 information based upon each of those domains for students in grades K2 and any students 3 through 5 who are reading below grade levels. So that would be phonemic awareness, phonics in particular in those areas. And so it's giving us more discrete information. And so strong assessments for classroom teachers. They can get information about students' reading fluency and comprehension, and then very discrete diagnostic information that tells teachers where students' strengths are for growth and improvement, and specifically what type of instruction.
Great. And do you all know if some of our teachers are still in that helpful way?
Yes, teachers are still using the BAS for local assessment and to really inform their instruction, in addition to the iReady results and other local assessments like the OG assessment as well.
Great. That's one. I mean, it sounds like our classroom by classroom, they are not lacking data at this point. There's a lot of information between iReady and the BAS and OG assessments and whatnot. Last year, when we started our 5% each year, we said with the BAS, we said that if we didn't reach 5%, we'd tack it on the next time. And I think it was students with disabilities and English language learners who we hadn't quite hit 5%. So that we didn't see a 5% improvement with the BAS last year. And I'm just wondering, I noticed that this year it looks like our goal is 5% more. And did we think about maybe tacking on that, hey, we only got 4% last year, so we had said originally, if we didn't hit the 5, we were going to tack it on to the percent for the next year, or maybe that question is to my colleagues to say, is that what we'd like to see rather than a 5% increase? Even though we switched assessments, did we switch our goal?
I'd say whatever we agreed to.
We agreed to 5% a year.
That's what we agreed to, sure.
I mean, we're not voting on anything tonight, but I am curious to know what people.
Well, I know when we were looking at the CASP data, that point was reiterated, I think, and because there was
Right, with the CASP data,
one
we
group
are
that
doing
didn't make
that.
it. Okay.
again, what you said, it's a different assessment. We can go back and look at I believe it was 3 of the groups that did not meet the BAS. And we were not, what's the word I'm looking for?
Calibrated.
Calibrated, thank you, with BAS. So it's, when we tried to calibrate, it just didn't happen.
Right.
So we are not sure how accurate that data was, given our results with CASP were so much better. We can go back and look at it, if that's what you would like us to do, and add percentages, and then hopefully blow them out of the water again, like we did last year.
I mean, I'd love to see you guys to blow out of the water.
We definitely
whichever.
have more specific information to do that.
But yeah, just looking at that and seeing, obviously it's apples and oranges, it doesn't map. But that was our goal. So it seems like, unless you tell us there's a good reason not to do that, it makes sense to me to pile those on.
Thought.
Yep.
I think what Ms. Brown said is that we were not calibrated, and I want to reiterate the second half of that, despite great efforts. Okay, there was a lot of effort that went into it, but the reality is you have X number of teachers that all become a variable in the instrument itself. I think the place that we didn't want to go, and it really gave us pause to make the change for a little bit, is, well, what happens if we start changing the instrument every year?
That's my concern.
I think in this case, we're not changing. You know, this is going to be our, I would really prefer us rethinking the starting point and going with the iReady as a standalone and not trying to convert something from the BAS. So if there's a thought that we're trying to come up with an equivalent and build upon that, I just don't know that that's going to be valid for us.
I mean, we've got a lot of work to do, right? Like, I know we want to be reasonable about what we can do, and yet we could do 5% a year for the next long time, and we're still, it's going to take us a long time to get where we want to go. And because of the variability, it may be sort of arbitrary at this point, but I do want to push us as hard as we can push us. And initially, we said that we would go 5%. So I don't know, I'm curious to know what my colleagues think on this.
No, go ahead.
I share that sentiment. It is arbitrary, but I have never been, one of my great epiphanies in life is the power of arbitrary goals on human behavior. So I don't shrink from that goal just because it's arbitrary. I think we agreed to it. That's the goal we set, and we should strive to hit it.
Yeah, and I know these are beginning of the year results, but they are, I mean, it sort of connects to the point I was making before about the first 2 indicators being just for 3rd grade. These numbers are actually lower, I guess, that I would expect given how much improvement was made last year. And I think it's because we're looking at a bigger group of kids than just those few third graders. But so I think that if we really have made those gains that we saw with the CASP, then most likely we should see a real big jump next year when we finally have this indicator nailed down. But I'm not sure where we should measure from, because it seems sort of odd to take the BAS numbers if they're, like, I agree that I want to push as hard as we can, but do we take those percentages and just assume that this sort of would have tracked?
Well, it's not taking the same percentages, it's just saying, last year with the BAS, we thought we'd improve 5, we only improved 4. If we had stuck with the BAS, we would have committed to 6% increase. So let's go with 6% increase with where they are now.
So we sort of basically assume the percentages that increased from the percentage increases that we saw in the BAS.
And,
see what I'm
and
saying?
that's what they're saying they can't say is true.
So it's sort of,
So I mean,
Here, right?
measure to-
Everyone's going to do their best.
to Mr. Brienza's point, I mean, we're talking about a percent here and there when 82% of low-income Latino kids are
Exactly.
below grade level.
Yeah.
So, it's not, for those kids, are spending 5 minutes talking about whether to add a percent or not to the goal doesn't
Exactly.
really move the needle very much with them. I don't think they're playing their tiny violins for us. I do think that, I would suggest that if you think there's a powerful reason not to do it, then come back with an explanation. But, and I'm certainly always happy to hear, good explanations and good reasons to change. But absent that, you guys are all gonna dig in and do what you do. And I thought the goals should have been higher before, so I'm not inclined to dial the goals back just because we changed the assessment.
This is a helpful conversation. So if we said it was going to be 5 and we hit 4, and I don't remember exactly what that number was, but I think that's in the ballpark. To say we'll do 6 now is fine. I think the trap will be trying to make a comparison to last year's BAS. I think in my mind,
That's my concern.
I'm
Is
done
what are we
talking about
measuring
BAS
against?
forever, and we just go with this plus 6, and I think we're totally fine.
These percentages plus
Yeah,
6. Yeah,
exactly.
that would be my preference, is not to try to tie back
Oh,
these
no.
percentages.
We can't, yeah.
plus
It's
6,
these
yeah.
percentages, but we want to,
Yeah.
in the chart that we saw, it was 5% in each one. And I think just adding on that percent or two, if that's what,
Yeah.
yeah.
Add a
I mean,
number to
I'd like
these.
to think that right now, the BAS is now being used in our district the way it was intended, right? As sort of to really use it as a tool to determine, to teach to instructional level, and without worrying about getting these numbers in, and is everyone doing it the same way? Let teachers use it the way they're gonna use it, and this is what we're using, 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 and looking at 5 or 6 or 7%, depending on what we saw last year.
Can I ask one a question for you in terms of directing staff? I love the idea of adding the category of all students, but I guess my question is it sort of going to be like how CASP data is reported, all students except these students, right? Like, we don't want these students counted twice in an all students category, right?
It's like all other students that don't fall in here.
Yeah.
And it's probably gonna look different.
And it's going to be, we're going to be up at 90 instead of up at whatever. Yeah, like to Mr. Collins' point, let's just put the dirty laundry out here as honestly as we can. Like, what are the other groups? Can you guys do that?
Because this is our first time taking it, and so computers, this is something they haven't seen before. Some kids get nervous, it might have been a long time. So to look at then all the other kids, all those things theoretically should have been reflected as well.
Exactly, right.
If I could ask a clarifying question, you just said to have a group without these groups.
Yeah, like all students except these students.
Okay. And you do realize that some of these kids are represented twice or more, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
so let's not represent them 3 times.
Now, a question for you. If the other group is, let's say, 2 other groups, do you want them separate as single groups? I'm thinking in my head with those groups, all the other students? Yeah, please.
Simple wins.
Yeah.
Okay. It's my thought here, doing a lot of these reports, so we would show this exact slide. We would have a next slide. It would not be on here because that's going to just mess things up. The next slide would be all students, which would include these students, because when we start trying to pull students out, we're going to mess it up. I'm just telling you, the data won't be clean. We will make errors.
Okay, so we'll know that those are numbers including these kids, right?
It will still give you a great representation of
The differences.
this versus the reality of our entire district, our #1 ranking versus this, versus this, versus this, versus this. And I just think we'll be cleaner with the data.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm just curious to know, as a very new assessment, and it sounds like a detailed one on a computer, right? There's gonna be a buildup, right?
Yeah. If we're okay with that, we can do that.
Yeah, my guess, just for reference, is I'm eyeballing this, maybe 20% of all the kids in the district are on this chart. So I think if we just looked them all together, we could probably,
still gonna be,
we could probably calibrate in our heads, yeah.
And some kids are probably on here 3 or 4 times, really.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, anything else about this chart? And thank you very much.
Good chart.
Grateful. Okay, next, review of heating, ventilation, and cooling project direction. Otherwise known as HVAC. Oh, I didn't take your comment. I'm so sorry.
You have a comment.
I'm so sorry. Stephen Davis, come on up. So I went right to our comments. I skipped your comment, I'm sorry. See, that's why I said it out loud.
Will you
'cause I
give me
knew
an
it was-
extra minute?
No.
Go for it. All right. Actually, first make a request. Please actually include the student populations in these charts. I actually spent some annoying time trying to return the numbers into numbers of people. The numbers that you're talking about, the yellows, oranges, and reds, are over 1,000 kids. And I think talking about percentages hides that. So let's say that again, it's well over 1,000 kids, I think, because they're not deconflicted with each other. And that's really the important thing. Number two, looking at the 5% goal, that means moving less than 100 kids out of these categories. I have a generic problem with 3% and 5% goals. If you have not read it, read the book about the theory of constraints, but it's on the weakest link. And when I see 5%, the way this is written, the most dangerous bureaucratic way to meet that is to meet it with the kids who are less than a year behind. And so we're basically winding up doing unintentional triage of the kids most in need. Okay? That's what we're doing. That is the math of 5%, because that's the way I win 5% if I am trying to feed the bureaucracy. I would ask that you think about a much scarier and a more ambitious goal, since you're changing metrics anyways, which would be cut in half the number of kids who are 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years behind. And if you fail, rather than, because 5%, sometimes you're gonna get that anyways. Go for something big, and that will also change the way you're thinking about the problem, because a 5% solution is working around the margin. Cutting in half our number of students behind is the way we make real change. Thank you.
Thank you. Colleagues, I am noting that the next public comment is for 6C, the review of Hoover.
I'm circling.
Okay. Mr. Holm.
Thank you very much. Can we have the presentation up? Great. Okay, so after our heat wave back in September, the board asked us to revisit our schedule and plan for the HVAC project upgrades and installation at all the elementary middle school classrooms. And so I've got up here a request for some direction from you guys. As a reminder, we started with board approval of the HVAC project in January of 2021, and we dove right in right away. Our original schedule has been to focus the majority of our work on summers, because we always try to essentially do no harm or do as little harm as possible to the classroom learning environment. And HVAC as a campus-wide project impacts every classroom and is pretty invasive though be it for a short period of time. And so our initial schedule was scheduled over several summers, with and some sites having to occur over multiple summers to get the work done in that short period of time. We've got up here additional options to both mildly and more aggressively accelerate the project. I'll go through those briefly, but they both involve getting creative and revisiting how we can displace the teachers on the site while we're doing the work. And so our initial schedule was spaced out every summer, with us completing all of the elementary and middle school campuses by summer of 2026. And to it, you'll see later tonight, we've got a couple projects we're ready to bid. We're green, middle school, we're already under construction on. So we have started right away on it from the approval last January, January 21. We've also been looking at, out of the heat wave, some mitigation options to sort of serve as a stopgap until we have air conditioning installed. The near-term options, the immediate thing we've done is we've purchased 400 pedestal fans that are currently being deployed to all elementary and middle school classrooms that don't have AC. So they're being assembled and distributed now. Then we're looking at ceiling fans as a possibility for the hottest elementary classrooms. And then window coverings, shades, or window film can be added to classrooms until the AC is installed. Then there's also some additional long-term options that would be for a discussion at another time, but we could go into longer-term solutions to offset heat gain on our buildings. For our mild accelerated HVAC schedule, the main thing by necessity at Green, because we needed to do the HVAC before our project next summer, and with supply chain issues, the equipment hasn't been ready. So we've been doing it during the school year, and what we learned was that the teachers were so excited to get air conditioning that they were really great collaborators with us in figuring out ways to let us do the work during the school year. And that's been by them moving out of their classrooms for a period of time and then moving back and kind of rolling through the campus that way. Green, we were fortunate to do that because we had already moved students around in anticipation of the big construction schedule or big construction projects. So we had and we had the need where we didn't really have an option otherwise. But applying that, we've already started talking to on later, JLS, where we can start moving the students or moving classes during the school year to facilitate an installation during the school year. It's obviously much easier to do that on a middle school than at the elementary level, because elementary, the classroom is a much greater part of the classroom environment. So we've got some suggestions for acceleration that could happen at the elementary level before we get really creative. Now, if we wanted to get more creative, one example of that would be the Escondido campus, where we could explore moving the SI program off of Escondido campus to the Greendale TEP campus, which is only a possibility because of the discussion we'll have on Hoover next. But that could be a possibility to facilitate accelerating Escondido and getting air conditioning there during the school year. Then as an additional option for a greater acceleration, we could do a design build process with large mechanical contractor to manage the process, and they would actually do the design of it and submit it to DSA. The benefit of that is we could work closely with figure out and strategize all of the sequences of work that would have to happen on the occupied site all the way up into the actual classroom work, and they could procure all of the equipment while it's going through DSA. All of these projects require electrical upgrades that have about a 48-week lead time, and mechanical equipment that has a 20 to 30-week lead time. So by bringing in a design build contractor, they could actually we could have them under contract, and they could procure these long lead time items while they're doing the design, while they're going through the DSA process, which would then make them ready to install in a faster sense. This would require a lot more coordination with the elementary sites, and it'd be similar to the middle school notion of acceleration of rotating students out, but would be a lot more work with them and more invasive of that nature. So our recommendation would be that we proceed with the pedestal fans on an immediate term, and that we install window film at elementary schools on south and west facing glazing that doesn't have shade canopies, so that's where you're gonna get the greatest heat gain. And that longer term options would be considered in future bond discussions. Then for the HVAC project, we would recommend actually going with option 3 if the desire is to get air conditioning as quickly as possible, and because that would solve the lead time challenges. If option 3 is not supported, based on the site feedback and staff recommendations, plan and option 2 would be how we would proceed. And we're essentially already starting on the option 2 with some of the middle schools.
Thank you. Okay, we have one public comment. Terry Baldwin.
Thank you. Terry Baldwin, President of the Palo Alto Educators Association. I was on the Board Bond Advisory Committee with Ms. DiBrenza and Mr. Darup, and we made our recommendation back in January of 2020, and it was approved by the board in February of 2020. And we discussed a plan of doing 4 elementary schools and 1 middle school each summer. 2 summers have gone by with none of that work being done. So we could be more than halfway done if we had just kind of followed that. You know, teachers are sending me pictures of their rooms. The temperatures are like 96 degrees in there. You know, when it's that hot, the kids are sitting in front of fans. It's a lot. So I just really urge you to speed this up as quick as possible, because I feel like we're already 2 summers behind what we could have done and been almost done with this. So thank you.
Thanks. I think that's the only comment. Colleagues?
I'm going to speak briefly. We talked about this, so I don't need to rehash everything that we said. I will just say my strong opinion is to accept staff's recommendation for 3 reasons. One, because the contractor purchases everything and not us purchasing things, which just feels crazy and a ability. So we minimize risk there. And second, we get it done faster. And we have much more control over the schedule. And I think the fact that we had that experiment at Green and it worked pretty well is great. To Ms. Baldwin's point, I mean, we should get this done fast. I do think COVID interfered over the past 2 years, which is probably why a lot of projects got delayed. But now we've kind of done all of the, upgrades on the filtration and everything that needs to happen. So let's do what we can. And I do recognize the downfall of, one of the possible downsides, but I do agree with the recommendation of staff's conclusion that the escalation, we might actually end up breaking even and not spending a whole bunch more in the long run because of escalation, and how much quicker we'll get things done, and that we'll know the costs ahead of time, like you said, instead of sort of being in this no man's land of how long is it going to take to get stuff and how much our costs can increase. So I just think for efficiency wise, I would support option 3. Now, we did just hear from Ms. Baldwin. As a board, we need to recognize is that this is a lot more disruptive to classrooms, which is why we have not wanted to, why we've had the plan of not going this route in the past. We are hearing from tons of teachers and parents about their uncomfortable classrooms. So my assumption is that teachers would be on board with the disruption to their classrooms, but this is where as a board it gets tricky when you're hearing from a loud vocal group of people that we don't at all have any confidence that necessarily is everybody or the majority of people speaking. So I'm in support of this, but I would love to make sure that we are confirming with principals that this is the way they want to go before we pull the trigger.
I'll go to all people and then, you got anything?
Yeah, but it's a little off topic, so.
Okay. Student board reps, do you guys have anything with this? Okay. All right. I think one just clarifying question. You talked about you guys tested, ordered, and are installing fans. Are those the pedestal fans or? Okay, those are pedestal
yes.
fans. And are those for every classroom that doesn't have AC or?
Every elementary and middle school classroom without AC, correct.
Great. Okay. And no, I'll forget that one. I think that in my mind, the way we talk to, I mean, I think there's nothing wrong with talking to the principals as well, but the way that we talk to our teachers is through our collective bargaining unit, right?
Exactly.
So if the president of our collective bargaining unit is up here saying this is the priority, I think that's something we have to trust and go with. Certainly, site by site might differ depending on what the options are for moving around and whatnot. So yeah, that should be worked out. But of course, COVID derailed this, not just that we all were in crunch mode with filtration and everything else, but that supply chain issues happened and everything got backed up, right? So obviously, right, I didn't realize that, wow, February of 2020 is when we approved it. And then, a month later, we were in crisis mode. So obviously that is why it was delayed. But yeah, I think over the past few years, we have had more and more unbearably hot days, and it's only going to get worse, all evidence. So I am on board with certainly trying to make it go faster as much as we can. And I think you're, I mean, we discussed this before, but I think doing it that way, if it offsets those escalation costs, it might be sort of a break even. The thing that I'm just thinking about bigger picture, and I don't know, maybe this is where you were going, but when we look at the bond that we passed in 2018, and we look at the increasing incidence of wildfires and how we have to think about windows and ventilation and everything for that, COVID happened, the unbearable heat's only gotten worse. When we passed the bond in 2018, we had a list of priorities, and those are still priorities, and yet our priorities have grown with lots of things that are costing a lot of money. So I think that at some point, whether we have to have a study session on bond issues or whether you all as staff need an update, but I think that you're really coming to us with all these things and we're telling you what to go ahead with. It's just, we're gonna find some of the things that we said, yeah, this is gonna happen in this next bond, are probably not gonna happen because a lot of this money is going towards things like HVAC and ventilation and things that we hadn't anticipated when we first went out for the bond. So I think that's something I just wanna keep on our radar to keep in touch with the community that approved this bond and their tax dollars, you know, they are helping us do this. So making sure that we stay on top of communicating with them what we are spending this money on and what next steps might be. Mr. Collins.
I did not have as broad a vision as you just talked about. More in a kind of just a minor technical sense. I think there's this concept of building escalation costs that's built into all the estimates, and I know that's standard in your profession, Mr. Holm, and it's all used in all construction, certainly school construction. There's limitations to that concept. Usually that number's 6% a year is typical. Is that fair, Mr. Holm?
It varies, but you'll get anywhere from 4 to 6.
So here's the thing: is if inflation is, well, in normal times 2 or 3%, construction can't expand at 6% a year, or otherwise it becomes the entire economy for the power of compound interest. So what in fact happens is it goes up for a while because supply is tight, then it goes down. And so I wouldn't. The idea that we're going to do something fast. This has been coming up on projects as long as I can remember. There's this logic of do it faster because we'll save money. That save money. Sometimes you don't save money. That's not a reason to do it faster, in my view. I mean, I saw lots of reasons to do it faster in this presentation, but I wouldn't persuade ourselves that we're gonna save money because we're going faster and put it on the side of let's go faster just to save money. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. I think we ought to look for other reasons.
I actually think some of the things we will save money if we actually wait a little bit, because right now things are so skyrocketing and flying up. But I think given that it's HVAC and that we're seeing more and more hot days, then yes,
They're
you're right.
powerful reasons.
That's a reason to do it on its own.
I don't think we're gonna save money by doing it faster, but I think we will spend more money than we think we will by doing it faster. We're gonna offset some of the additional costs by doing it faster.
My guess is we're going to spend a lot of money no matter how we do it. So.
It's going to cost a lot of money, and I do want to just because we've heard people were so hot and so upset and just like go, but we're going to forget about the hot days, and it's going to be like February, and you're going to tell a second grade teacher that they have to move out of their classroom. They're going to forget how hot we have to over-communicate with the sites.
Yes.
We have to over-communicate with these classrooms because that's going to be just as stressful. As someone who lived through construction at Addison, it is awful.
We can send them some of the pictures Ms. Baldwin referred to.
Yeah, exactly.
96-degree thermostat.
I actually don't think they are. But I also know how hard it is to pack up a classroom and move it, and it's very disruptive.
Yeah.
So, both and. I think, yes, just reminding all of that. I think, can I just mention one other thing you said? You talked about SI, Spanish immersion, maybe being relieve some pressure on Escondido by moving one program for a period of time. And can you just say a little bit more about that? Or maybe it's time to talk about it with Hoover, but I'm curious.
I can address that now.
Well, so is there anything about this one? Because we could just say, hey, take it away to C.
Are we done?
Are we done with that?
Do you guys have enough from us?
Okay, go ahead and take that.
Well, so with the Hoover project, our proposed option would allow us to accelerate the build so that we would not disrupt the campus for 2.5 years. It would be a year to year and a half. It would not, when I say accelerate, I should probably use a different word. I should say shorten the build. It would not accelerate our completion date. We would still have the same completion date, but it would mean we potentially don't have to disrupt the campus as soon, and Hoover could stay where they are for an additional academic year. That gives us an opportunity if we wanted to accelerate Escondido by relocating the SI program over to the Greendale site.
Interesting.
And we have had some preliminary conversations with Marcella, the principal at Escondido. She thinks her community and her teachers would be in favor of something along those lines. We would need to explore it further. We would need to explore the Hoover schedule further to verify if that is the case. But we have also talked to the Hoover community about the schedule overall, and their overall feedback was, as long as we're still moving in at the end that you committed to, that's great. So everything's been looked at, or everything we're looking at right now is about minimizing student impacts everywhere. Additionally, the Escondido SI program, about 70% of them commute to that program. About 70% would actually have a shorter or equal commute going to Greendale. So there could be an opportunity if we wanted to accelerate that even further. And one of our items later is to go out to, is permission to bid on the Escondido project. So for HVAC. So that is the next HVAC project that's in the queue to get started. And so that would be independent of discussions about a design build contractor, because we'd already get that one going before a design build contractor would proceed.
Okay, thank you for bringing it up. To clarify, there has been no decision made. We aren't doing this, but I think it is really helpful when we sort of think out loud sometimes. It can get people a little nervous, and we're sort of talking through what the possibilities are. So I'll be interested to hear, I guess right now about Hoover, but then as things progress, what you guys are thinking and why. Okay, thanks. So should we go on to the next one?
Sure. So for Hoover, we had the master plan, or I'm sorry, the schematic design that we brought to you in the spring, and shortly thereafter we got the cost estimate back from that, and the project was over budget by a fair amount, much more than we wanted it to be. We spent some time this summer working with the architects, looking at implementing different strategies for value engineering to reduce the project scope and get closer to the approved budget. We didn't feel we could get there in a feasible manner and under the direction we were still going in. And one of the things we always had in the back of our mind was exploring different modular prefabricated options. And so we looked. One of our what we're asking for tonight is your approval to go forward with one that we like. If we wanted to, we could. Or if you wanted to, we could explore others. But the alternate building solution that we felt was the best solution was a DSA. It's a combination of a DSA pre-approved. It's called TimberQuest, prefabricated building solution. Which basically means they prefabricate parts off-site and they bring them on-site and construct them. And then that would be applied to all one-story spaces. And then a customized cross-laminated timber type design, which is sort of designed in the nature of TimberQuest for all the two-story spaces, which would allow us to complete the project on time and closer to the approved budget. And if we look at the approved schematic design, this was the design we had last spring. And one of the key things about this was really tying in with the Eichler neighborhood that we are, to be good neighbors and to be respectful of that neighborhood. So the TimberQuest solution, this was installed or built at Sacred Heart down the street. And this was a kindergarten wing that they built. Their facilities manager or facilities director said that they love these classrooms. We've toured it. We toured it with Principal Sherman, and he really liked the classrooms. And their facilities director said he would, if it was up to him, he would replace all his award-winning architectural award-winning buildings for his as a fan, and the teachers are a fan. So this is what they look like on the inside. A lot of natural wood, really light, airy classrooms. with the cross-laminated two-story option, so the material, the wood that this TimberQuest is made out of is cross-laminated timber, and there is not a DSA pre-check two-story option, so this would be a custom design. And we've explored a couple different site plans, but they would both of our options that we have are very similar to the schematic design site plan. There'd be some slight modifications that we'd work out with the site and with the teachers as the next step. The benefits of this is that we would, in order to make this possible, we would have to do a lease-back contract, which is the same type of contract we did for the Pali gym. But that would enable us also to do some early procurement of materials, early ordering of materials, which would help us reach that fast construction of 12 to 14 months, which would also allow us, we still could not accelerate this and start sooner because we still need the design time, the DSA approval time, and the cross-laminated timber is a prefabricated component. And so that would all happen prior to the start of site construction. So when we say fast construction, 12 to 14 months, that's the on-site impacts to our community, our learning, et cetera. So we would be building ahead of time off-site. The one-story component is already DSA approved. The project is, or the product is a 50-plus year building life cycle, which is comparable to site-built, stick-built work. It's a people call it modular building solution, and then it's also a green solution. It's biophilic design, ample natural light, exceeds Title 24 energy requirements by 25%. They can realize 90% waste diversion, and the product is carbon sequestering rather than carbon emitting. So this would be the most sustainable or green building that we would have in our district, in addition to the benefits of cost savings and speed.
Great, we've got one public comment on Zoom, Olga Petrova.
Hello, I'm Olga Petrova.
Can you speak up a little bit more?
Yeah, hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
I hope you hear me. I'm Olga Petrova and Vice President of the PTA from Hoover Elementary. I'm so very thankful that this project is finally moving somewhere. We are excited to work with Eric Holm, and we are looking forward for the construction and the move. The only thing that I think a delay of the move. So we would, as far as I understood, that the delay of the construction could be just a half a year, and so potentially we would be ready to move at the end of this year and be at the Coverly for half a year, and then construction would start, and that way completion will be on track and not delayed. So that would be our preference, to minimize disruption in the classroom. And so far, we are looking forward for that project to begin. Everything looks good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, colleagues. Questions, comments? I know, Ms. Latimerek, you and I have talked about this a lot.
Talked about this so much. Yeah.
Yep. Oh,
We can respond if, I would say, Mr. Collins, if you have comments. Otherwise, we can.
My only comment on this is, I guess I'm a little surprised this even comes to the board. I mean, I haven't seen the board in the past kind of opine on construction methods. So, no need to comment. So, in the future, unless there's some, something, and I know you guys are cautious and try to sunshine things, and I make sense to, so my feedback is that in the future, I wouldn't expect to see construction method questions come to us. We're not very good at evaluating construction methods. So if it's DSA approved and functionally equivalent, then my personal feedback is I don't think it needs to come to the board.
thanks. Ms. Latimerek?
So therefore, go forth and use TimberQuest in every school.
Forever and ever.
now on. Yeah, seriously. I mean, I'm sort of making a joke, but I think, I think that because I understand why you brought this to us, because we've never really done anything, big change. But I do think maybe now, if we're all okay with it, that perhaps it could come forward as a staff report or an information item or something. Anyways, we'll leave that up to you guys. I don't mind weighing in on stuff if you want us to, but
I'd like to say I'm really glad you brought this to the board. This is a huge change.
It's a
I mean,
huge
not a
change.
huge change. It's still going to be this beautiful building, but this is different than we've done before. And I think us just making that change and then the community hearing about it feels very different. It feels like something that, if anything, not just to report to the board, but just to elevate to the community, that this is something. I love that you have already met with the Hoover community to talk it through. I think just being as transparent as we can. I'm really excited about this technology, that it's getting better. I love how green it is. I love that it's quicker. Excited about this. The fact that it is greener, faster, and cheaper, and still like super high quality and looks great, is really exciting. I wouldn't be surprised if going forward, the bond committee and the board and the district decided that this was kind of the construction of the future for us. It makes a lot of sense and is clearly as resilient as our traditional buildings have been. You think that property committee in the future would say, okay, is this something that has to come? But given that this is sort of our first dip in the pool of something like this, it makes sense to me that we would discuss it.
Just one, I mean, yeah, maybe part of the reason I feel this way is I was just looking at the email from 2014 where we had internal discussions on the bond oversight committee about modular construction, which was at the time a mildly new thing for school buildings, but there was a specific company that was going like all in on it, and it just was so compelling because buildings were very understandable and predictable, and offsite construction was so compelling from every dimension, material, I mean, you've listed them all, that it seemed, crazy that there wasn't a big thing. And I would be, especially with the escalation in construction costs that have happened post-pandemic, I would expect this to become a standard, if not the standard, not just for Palo Alto, but for all of California, because this is just a better way to build school buildings.
Agree. And I'm glad that you have found a company that you're really happy with, in both to work with and their product and everything. So, okay, student board representative, yep.
I think it's like really cool. The design looks very cool. It reminds me of the Mitchell Park Library. And yeah, it's also really cool that it's like a very green alternative to what we have right now. So yeah.
I think the first time you showed it to us, I said, it looks like an Eichler. It looks like a really big Eichler, right? And so that's a very typical house down there, in that neighborhood. And so it feels like it just fits really nicely, and so open and light and airy. So really exciting. Thank you so much for that.
Can I add one thing? I just wanted to say thank you also, Dr. Austin, Mr. Holm. I don't know how the decision was made, but to us, because that was my first question in property, and I wouldn't have really felt either way. And not because of any doubts about, I'm very much in support of this direction, but just because we were changing mid-project, and we may know that it doesn't feel like a big deal and the building's gonna be just as great, but the community it's been so long for them. I mean, years and years and years trying to get this done. So just thank you for, taking the time to read in that respect. I appreciate that.
Yeah, finding out that there was some change tomorrow after the board meeting tonight doesn't feel good for the community. They don't like that. So thank you.
Can I make a brief request?
Yep.
Are we done with the item?
We are.
It's 8:08. I would like to use the restroom, and we don't have a quorum if I step out. So could we take a short break?
We're going to take a 5-minute break, and we will be back at 8:13.
Thank you.
Thank you for being responsible. I would have just left.
I know, it's funny because I've seen meetings where people do that and somebody catches it. And it,
I hear me again. Okay, it's 8:13. Board is back in session, and we are moving on to 6D. approval of project scope, design, budget, authorization, repairs to the swimming pool at Fletcher. Welcome back, Mr. Holm.
Hello again. So this is both approval of the project scope, design, also budget and authorization to submit, which is the Fletcher pool, very similar to the green pool, which we are in construction on right now. The coating has failed on it, and it's actually, we reviewed doing new fiberglass coatings, but similar to the green, we've made the same analysis as the green pool, which is that really for the long-term viability of the pool, we should take the time now and redo the plaster shell, plaster lining. So this would be a complete redo of the pool shell, redo of the concrete deck and drainage, because also a pool of this age, most likely all of, most likely the plumbing connections and drainage connections have failed at various points and are causing leaks. So this would be a full pool redo. The estimate for the pool, Fletcher pool, is slightly larger than the green pool, so it's a little more expensive, $1.9 million. So the overall, this would be a planned maintenance project from the Measure Z bond fund for $2.4 million.
Okay. Great. I see no public comments on this. Any comments, student board reps, colleagues? Great. Okay, thank you. Moving on to E. Take it away.
So as referenced in my HVAC presentation, this is authorization to bid the Escondido HVAC project, which is currently in DSA. It'll be coming out shortly. And also as authorization to bid the Fletcher HVAC and fire alarm project, also currently in DSA. With these projects, we would be bidding them and starting construction right away. And Fletcher, we would be utilizing the option 2-ish kind of strategy of maximizing to get this project done as quickly as possible.
Great. And to clarify, Ms. Baldwin, you didn't have a comment on this as well, right? Okay, great. Okay, colleagues, any questions? Any questions? Any questions? Any questions? To clarify, when we do the upgrades, we are moving to electrical, right?
Correct.
Which is something the city is trying to do anyway.
Yes.
So this is greener. Okay, great, awesome. Moving on to F.
Do we need to vote on these? Or, this is discussion.
These are all
Sorry.
discussion.
I always get a mistake there.
They'll be quick next time.
Yes. So this is approval of Addendum 13 to SVA Architects Master Agreement for the design services for El Carmelo's HVAC and fire alarm. So that'd be a full campus HVAC for the projects, for the buildings that are not under construction right now, and then a full campus fire alarm upgrade. And JLS is HVAC campus-wide, and then Green Middle School, another part of the sort of make ready for the Building H work is Building H is where the main campus distribution for internet is, and Building H is being demolished, so we need to relocate the MPO, the main point of entry for data for the campus. And so that is the design services to relocate that, which will be done as part of the main project work. So funding of this will come from a mixture of both Measure Z and planned maintenance. And the total is 610 across all 3 different projects. But this is all architectural services.
Questions, comments? Students? No? Okay, great. Next.
Okay. And then lastly, we have in going forth with the TimberQuest solution, custom solution, we are switching gears. LPA Architects was our schematic design architect, and they've actually, in all the work we did this summer, they helped us sort of get to this conclusion, and they will be stepping aside, and we will be hiring ADIS architects. ADIS and the structural engineer Daedalus were the designers and structural engineer that developed TimberQuest and are most suited to carry forth this custom 2-story solution. And so we have been talking with them about their availability and capability of doing this, and all of our analysis of going forth in this direction was based on feedback from them and the ability to go forth in that manner.
Great. Questions, comments? Okay, thank you so much.
Great, thank you.
Okay, there are no staff reports, so moving on to information items. We take all these items together, and if anyone has anyone they want to discuss? No? Okay, well, there's lots of good information in here, so I encourage board members and community members to check it out. Moving on to board operations. Anyone have anything?
To judge the Pally floats and Spirit Week dances again, which was really fun.
It was a lot of fun. Anything?
I note that the agenda setting committee added committee reports as an item on board operations, which is great. And I think will serve us well since so much work is being done in committee. But to make it work, we now have to get reports from the committees. And we do see
everything?
we do see the product from the, from the BPRC and the property committee on a fairly regular basis. So I think those committees probably don't need to report. The city school committee is one that does meet with, great regularity, but we very seldom hear what is being discussed there. So it would be great to get a report from city school. And the equity committee, which met and somewhat reported last year, has not met yet this year, but I was going to suggest that we do meet. And then when we do, we can provide a report. Did I miss any of the standing committees? Are those there were others that are kind of dormant, like bond building recommendations, and I think those are the main
I think those are the
active
ones.
committees, right?
Yeah.
So it would be great maybe next time if we could hear what city school committee is up to. I don't know who even knows on it.
Ken and I are on it.
Okay.
I missed the last one, but we are meeting again in a
There's
week or
bound to
two.
be another. Yeah.
Bound to be another. They're always coming. Make sure we're building people up. And I just wanted to acknowledge, to piggyback on Ms. Ladimirak, Mr. Gallagher at Pally was the lead on an amazing Spirit Week that, of course, involved hundreds of staff and hundreds of students, thousands of students, and so many parent volunteers. But Mr. Gallagher was really the guts behind that whole operation, and just want to acknowledge him and all the work that he did, and I'm really looking forward to the gun Spirit Week to see some more fun. If that is all, then we are adjourned.
Thank you. Sorry, I lengthened it by 5 minutes by having a break.